participants. I've only got names for 8. Who has not been recognized?
The FBI.
Okay.
Well, I think mine just says iPad, but this is.
Well, I've got you, Skip. I've got
Okay.
I've got Skip, Rick, Gary, Gene, Ken, Judy, and Stan together, and Bob. Oh, there's
Thanks.
one. There's
You
Jim
got
Bailey.
Jim Byron.
Hey, Jim, welcome.
Howdy.
There is obviously one more person connected. There he is.
Fred. Fred.
Oh,
Who was
Fred.
that?
It's Fred.
I thought
Fred?
it was like Fred. Okay.
Okay, welcome, Fred. Good to see you. Good to hear you. We'll get started now. It appears we have no guests or no distinguished visitors with us today. Like last month, we had Scott English join us, but and I didn't make any special effort to notify him. Rick, you may have. I didn't. But
Well, when I sent the notice for the thing, I sent it to everybody for the Arlington participants. So he would have received it, but I'm
would've
sure
got
he's.
that's
Yeah.
great, and I appreciate you doing that, Skip. It helps me. My note that I send the reminder to the Granbury group isn't as extensive as yours. It's incomplete, but appreciate you doing it.
No problem.
Let's go into show and tell if we can. Skip, you have anything for show and tell?
No, I sure don't.
Okay, Rick, do you have anything for show and tell?
Yeah, I guess so. I always got something laying around here. I guess a couple of months back, I wrote an article about the wet and dry printing processes that I found out about when I was looking into the Liberty series of stamps. And kind of interestingly, I found out there's a whole lot more involved in the Liberty series than what I realized. And so I started doing more research and found out there's actually a book about it. If I can get the thing to show up on my screen, it won't show up. Hang on a second. Hang on.
It looks like a can of beer.
That does look like a can of beer.
Dave, you only live a mile from me. I believe I'll come over to your house.
This thing right here. Let's see. Is that showing up? No, hang on.
No, not yet.
There we go.
There we are.
Is it showing up backwards?
Oh, the Liberty series.
Yeah. Is it showing up backwards or?
No.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Anyway, found out there'd been a book written about it. Well, one of the guys who wrote the book is named Tony Warukiewicz, and he apparently is the expert on postal routes, domestic and foreign, all kinds of postal routes. And I actually got to meet him at the virtual stamp show this weekend. So that was kind of interesting to me. I don't know how many of you guys got involved in that virtual stamp show that the APS put on, but
I did 2 sessions.
Okay, it was really super. I mean, my calendar was full for like 5 days, so I must have hit 20 or 25 different events. It was something else, and it was nice to finally put a face to some of the names that I recognize. So it was a lot of fun, really worthwhile.
The session on the pre-stamp mailings I thought was extremely interesting.
Yeah, the one that talked about the 80 years before.
Yeah.
Stamps. Yeah.
I went to that one as well.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Gary, do you have anything for show and tell?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see this or not. These are some New Zealand stamps that I got from the ISWSC mail bid, which closed on the 15th. And I entered, I mean, I bid on about 8 or 9 things and won 4 lots. And if you are involved in that, I would just go in and bid the minimum, and you're going to win some of those lots just bidding the minimum. Unless you absolutely have to have it, and then you might bid a little more than the minimum. But I found pretty good success on that using just minimum bids on that mail auction.
How do you pay for those, Gary?
Pardon?
How do you pay for those?
Send a
You
check.
write a check to the ISWSC after Smokey Stover notifies you what you owe.
Okay,
And so you just put the bid down on a sheet and either fax it to him. I mean, either email it to him or snail mail it to him. And then he notifies you what you won and in an email, and then you can just send him the check, and next day or two, the mailing comes in. So it works pretty well.
Anyone that is not a member that would like to see their newsletter, which always has an application in it, I think I still have the electronic version that was sent a week to 2 weeks ago. And anybody want it sent to them, let me know.
Yeah.
I'd like to mention one thing now. If you guys, I don't know if how familiar you are with Zoom right now, but there's a thing in the upper right-hand corner called Speaker View. And if you select that, it will actually bring to full screen whoever is talking. So if somebody displays something, it shows it up full size. So it looks a lot better.
good.
Okay.
Okay.
And you can switch it back to, there's a little box there with multiple dots in it. So you can switch it back that way if you want to. You can go ahead and try it. It doesn't affect anything.
We've got it set up as super.
Okay.
Okay, I'd asked Gene for show and tell, but he can't tell because he's linked just to the computer. He can send us written messages. So I'll pass it on to Ken. Ken Aldridge, any for show and tell?
Okay, is this backwards? It is, isn't it?
No, that's
No, it's
good.
fine.
No, it's fine.
You see that? Here are 3
Turn
sites.
it around and it'll be backwards.
Here are 3 sites on Facebook that I've been the last couple of weeks lurking there, checking. There's a lot of new people that, inherited stamps, and so there's a lot of advice, but there's also some really pretty good deals, people wanting to sell. And I bought a few things. Just if you go to Facebook and Google Stamps, probably 1 or all 3 of them might come up. But I've had some pretty good luck with it. But one thing I'd say is be careful about postage fees. It can get a little out of hand, and make sure there's good agreements. And everything is by PayPal. Payment is by PayPal. The other thing is, Dave was talking about postcards. Well, mine's bigger than his. This is, I don't know, it's about 8 by 10 or 8, something like that. It's not a page size. Maybe it's more like 7 by 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Anyway, I looked this up, and it would actually cost you just a regular first-class mail rate, 55 cents to send this. It's oversized, over the 3.5 by 5 regular postcard. But if you get over 6.5 by 11.5, then you have to use a flat rate. So I've never seen a postcard bigger than this one. But if you do have something that's bigger, it would have to go at the flat rate, postage rate. And I don't know where I got this. It's blank on the, nobody sent it to me. I picked it up somewhere as a souvenir or something. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Stan and Judy, do you have anything for show and tell?
Nope.
All right, Bob Coleman, I know you've got something.
Well, no, I was just going to say that during this damn pandemic, whatever it is, I've been working on, yeah. I've been working on my flight covers. I don't know if you can see that or not, but anyway, like I say, Ray Cartier has been a big help because that man has a lot of good information if you're into air and space covers and everything. Just his knowledge is something else, and I've talked to him a couple of times. But basically, that's all I'm doing, besides staying out of my wife's way. That's the reason I'm back here in my room. So anyway, but yeah, this is a inconvenience, I think, for most of us, since we're mostly retired. I would hate to be a younger person back in the day when you really depended on a paycheck every week, and trying to put kids through school and all that. And so what I have been doing actually is just getting caught up, and it's really been enjoyable just not have to go anywhere,
Okay, thank you, Bob. Jim Bailey, anything for show and tell?
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Dave.
Okay, Fred, anything for show and tell?
Yes, I do. This month in the APS Journal, Ken Lawrence had an article about patriotic envelopes from the Civil War era. And so I got on eBay and bought me one that's a Charles Magnus production out of New York City. They're worth a lot more if they've been through the mail, but it is what it is. But it's a new collecting interest for me. I have a couple of others that I bought also, not nearly as striking as the Magnus piece. And it's kind of a gold tint to it, real. And the verse that's with it says, this is from Portland, Maine. Lumber State Soldiers motto: we live for the Union, we die for the Union, we will uphold the Union. And then it has Charles Magnus, New York, in the lower left-hand corner. But so it's a new collecting interest for me that I'm starting. Get out of the wrapper business.
Okay, thank you, Fred. I'm going to continue with my series on postcards, postal cards. And today I've got one. Is that showing at all to anybody?
Oh,
No.
I don't even see where my picture's up there.
You're there.
You're there.
You're there, but whatever it is you're showing is.
That's showing.
Here we
All right.
go.
Okay, well, I've got a postcard that's 94 years old. It was to my grandfather in Deansboro, New York, which is central New York State. The picture on it is from Bald Mountain in the Adirondack Mountains, north of that, in northern part of New York State. And the postcard was from his niece, who had just traveled by train through the Adirondacks to Montreal. So she'd picked up the postcard in the Adirondacks, but the cancellation on the stamp is a common 2-cent postcard rate US postage, canceled in Montreal, Canada on August 4th, 1926. So I thought it unique that it was a US stamp sending mail from Canada to the US. That's one of my postcard unique things. So that's my show and tell. So I guess that's everybody. Anything else for show and tell?
Yeah, can I say one thing? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
go for it.
Oh, okay. No. You know, in the Civil War, I have, of course, my people were in it because we're all from Virginia and West Virginia. But here's an interesting cover right here. Can you see that?
Yeah,
Hanging Jeff Davis.
yeah.
That's one hanging Jeff Davis, but that's a Civil War. And I've got, you know, several more. But it's just interesting with what's going on today about that. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. That's it, Dave.
Okay, thanks a lot. I asked Rick to just take a minute to tell us about the virtual stamp meeting and how it went last week. I know they had over 3,000 people registered for that meeting, Rick. So anything you'd like to share with us?
Well, I think some of us, made it to the show, and it stood for itself pretty much. It was really, really interesting to me. I could probably even show you my calendar for what I did there. But hang on just a second. Let me see if I can get the thing up here.
It was pretty easy to get registered and to pick out what you wanted to see. I had kind of a busy week, but I did take in a couple of them, and very well done, very professionally done, very enjoyable.
The most difficult thing I experienced was the time change, that I kept forgetting that there's an hour difference between the schedule and where we were on. I missed a whole bunch of sessions because of that.
Here's your skit.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
All right.
kind of an eye chart though.
Yeah. Well, put it on speaker view and it'll be a little bit better. But anyway, that's my schedule for Monday and Tuesday,
Wow.
Wednesday and Thursday,
Oh,
and then
geez.
Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
So I found plenty that was kind of interesting in there, and it worked out. It was a good time for me. I mean, I was on there from like 9 or 10 in the morning till sometimes 11 at night, yakking with people, and it was funny, good time, and I made some friends, and I met some people that I never thought I'd meet, so it's kind of interesting. I fully support it. I mean, I think it was a great thing to do, and I'm amazed at what the APS has done to take this challenge and run with it, because this whole virtual thing is all brand new to everybody, and I mean all around the country, all around the world, but everybody grabbed it by the horns and gone with it. So if you get a chance to go to another virtual stamp show, I say go for it. It's a great thing. Now, there was a physical stamp show in St. Louis this past week, and I understand it went really well for the people that attended. The dealers were happy, but there was only about 300 attendees. So that's something we'll have to keep in mind, for our expo.
Right.
So anyway, there's an expo meeting coming up Thursday. If you guys want to attend, it's on Zoom here, same address and everything. So we'll see how that goes.
Thank you.
I have a question for Stanley.
Yeah.
Stan, when you visited with people over at the convention center, are they all 100% go for November, or is there any kind of reservations about our show?
I never asked them. I'm kind of leaving all that up to Ralph.
Yeah.
I think he really wants to run the show, and I'm going to let him.
Yeah.
But no, all I did was I took the floor plan that Ralph had approved and just had John redo it. But it looks like that they're open for business. And I know one time I was there was a group that was there. So I gather that we will have the facility if we want it.
Do we know how many dealers?
I think there's 20 so far.
20? So we're down some. I'm a little apprehensive about attendance, and I'm also a little apprehensive about how many of our volunteers
Yes.
that we might, yeah.
Skip to send out, I was, write up an article for Skip to send out, asking for those who are going or, willing to volunteer, so we have an idea. And also I'm doing up a budget, and we'll get that out to all the chairmen tomorrow evening before the meeting on Thursday.
Okay.
I'll have an idea of where we stand and so forth. So.
Right. Okay.
Thank you for the question. Let's move on to the fact that this fall we've got an election of officers, and we've got some vacancies, and I would encourage you folks to consider running for that office or some of those offices. They were outlined in the newsletter, which I received yesterday. So please consider that. Now, let's go to where in the world is it? I'll turn it over to Gary.
Okay, this should be a pretty easy one, folks, I think. You might get it on the first or second clue, I don't know. This country issued its first stamp in 1853, and they had a series on St. Anthony. Occurred early in the 1900s, I believe. Many of the early stamps are of King L-U-I-Z. I'm not sure if you pronounce that Louis or Louise or Louis or how you pronounce that, but that was the king's name.
Romania?
Pardon?
Romania?
Nope. No, not Romania. There were a series also on national palaces. And one of these was in a place called Mafra, M-A-F-R-A. Many of the early stamps have the designation on them Continente, C-O-N-T-I-N-E-N-T-E. Many of the stamps also were overprinted with, for example, Republica, R-U-P-U-B-L-I-C-A. This country was the home of an explorer named Vasco da Gama.
Portugal.
Hey, we got it.
Yeah.
You are the winner, Portugal.
Okay. Thanks. Rick, you're the winner today. We ought to give him a door prize, Judy, for that. All right. Is there any other business we need to attend to before I turn the program over to Rick, who's going to present us a program on Texas Confederate Postmaster Provisionals? Hearing nothing, I turn it over to you, Rick.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Let's see if I can get this thing up here. Is that showing up to everybody?
Nope. Not
Nope.
yet.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, there we
All
go.
right.
There you are.
Okay, hang on a second here. See if I can move this thing. Okay, I hope it's still showing up.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Well, like Dave said, it's called Texas Confederate Postmaster Provisionals. And we'll get into what those are exactly. If you can remember back in 1860, Texas was a whole lot different than it is now. The population back then was 604,215.
Only Stanley can remember that.
Yeah, I knew somebody would. Yeah. And today's population is 29 million plus. But if you look at the map here, you'll see that most of Texas was populated from the eastern side, which is the way people were actually coming into Texas. They were coming in through Arkansas and Louisiana, and coming across into East Texas. So East Texas got populated first, pretty much, and then Galveston area and Houston down there because it was on the coast. And it was a lot different area than it is today. And if you look up here in the western part of the state, the Panhandle area, that was mostly Indian territories, and there was a lot of problems that the Texas government had because there were deserters coming into those territories, hiding out, and also the Indians were in there. They were causing problems along the border as well. So Texas had a double problem with the Civil War going on and all this other crap going on the west side as well. So anyway, this is a timeline pretty much of what was going on. And February 9th of 1861, Confederate States of America was formed with Jefferson Davis as the president. March 2nd, Texas joined the Confederacy after replacing Sam Houston, who refused to take an oath of allegiance to the Confederacy, and he was replaced by Lieutenant Governor Edward Clark. May 31st, the U.S. Postmaster ordered the cessation of U.S. mail service through the South. So the next day, the mail service was assumed by the Confederate States of America Post Office Department. Getting farther ahead now, April 9th, 1865 is when the Army surrendered Northern Virginia at Appomattox. And May 26th, 1865, surrender of troops west of the Mississippi River. June 28th, 1865, the last shot of the war was fired by Confederate cruiser Shenandoah in the North Pacific Ocean. And that's a story in itself, guys. That's quite an interesting story about a guy who was attacking commercial United States entities up there in the Northwest. And he was targeting whaling vessels, as a matter of fact, because whale oil was so important to the people in the United States. And on November 1st, 1866, post offices were returned to federal control. Maybe one of these days I'll do a story on that Confederate cruiser Shenandoah, because it's a really interesting story. This gentleman here is Confederate Postmaster General John H. Reagan of Palestine, Texas. He was appointed March 6, 1861 by Jefferson Davis. And he was quite good at his job, apparently. The state of Louisiana joined the Confederacy on February 1st, 1861. And this letter up here was mailed from New Orleans to Cincinnati, Ohio, using a U.S. 3-cent stamp. Because it used a U.S. stamp, it's kind of unique. And this cover sold for $32,500 in a Siegel auction. Reagan contracted with lithographers Hoyer and Ludwig of Richmond, Virginia, to produce Confederate stamps, but this #1 stamp here, which was approved, didn't arrive in post offices until October of 1861. So what happened was that the post offices didn't get any stamps to put on letters to be able to mail things. So they went back to the old way of using just mark paid 5 or paid 10, whatever the rate happened to be, like they did on stampless covers prior to that. Reagan established mail rates as 5 cents per half ounce for distances less than 500 miles and 10 cents per half ounce from more than 500 miles. After the war ended, Reagan was asked to assume responsibilities in post-war U.S. Post Office Department. He declined that, but he was apparently very well known and very well accepted as postmaster, and they were really impressed with what he did with the Confederate mail. And I've written down here as a side note, some of you guys may know about this, I'm not sure, but in August of 2017, there were 3 Confederate statues removed from the campus at the University of Texas at Austin at the insistence of University President Greg Fenves, citing the statues were being removed because they depict parts of American history that run counter to the university's core values. The statues were of Robert E. Lee, Albert Sidney Johnston, and John H. Reagan. They were removed after an incident at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville after an incident of political unrest in which one person was killed. So he was a little bit ahead of his time there. I think Governor Abbott had something to do with that as well. But they were a little bit ahead of their time in removing those Confederate statues. I guess they kind of preempted our current situation. Okay, I've pretty much gone over all this stuff already. I changed some of the stuff around when I was going over this. So this one I should have just taken out, I guess. Talks about the shortage of Confederate stamps and the reason that the postmaster had to use provisionals. This catalog here was by August Dietz, who passed away not too long ago, but he was quite the authority on Confederate States postage, and this quite a significant catalog. He lists 169 Texas towns that mailed provisional covers during the Confederate War or Civil War. And as I said, the postmasters had to go back to using the old paid 5 or paid 10 stamps like it's shown here on these stamps from Crockett and Jasper, or these letters from Crockett and Jasper, mailed in 1861. This one came from Austin, Texas. And you'll see what they did in this is they took a regular circle stamp, circle cancel, and add the paid 10 in the center of it to create a provisional type postmark and use that. Said this one also has 5. That's August 5th, isn't it? Yeah, okay. I thought I had one with dual on it, May, but this one has paid 10 on it. So, yeah, this one has the paid 5 if you look here, and the paid 10 in the middle. So this one has, with the dual in combination, caused this one to bring $2,200 in an auction. So Texas Confederate covers are extremely hard to come by. There's been a couple of collectors that have been just hoarding them, I think. So you'll see them every now and then, and they come up at an auction, and usually they bring a premium. Now this is actually a provisional stamp, and this is one of the first ones. This is from Austin, Texas, and it was made by hand stamping a separate piece of paper and gluing it onto the envelope. So you see what they did was they had the regular Austin, Texas with the paid 10 in the center of it, but they just stamped it on a piece of paper, and then the postmaster sold these pieces of paper like that and accepted them as postage And the reason he did that was so he wouldn't have to have people waiting in line and have to hand stamp a whole bunch of envelopes at one time. This way people were, could use it just like a regular stamp. And this one sold in a 2014 auction for $16,000. So like I say, they bring a premium. This is a Beaumont, Texas cover, and pretty much the same type thing. The postmaster went to a printer and had these things printed up, and there are only 14 of them known to exist, and 13 of them are on cover. This one realized $15,000 in an auction. Goliad, they did the same thing. The postmaster went and had these things printed up, and same thing, posted them at the post office, and they're expensive, $40,000 for this one. There's only 4 of these known, so they're a little bit rare. There is a pretty reliable census on these covers. They know exactly how many of them are out there, and usually when they come up for sale, people are recording it and trying to figure out who bought them and what they paid for. This one in particular was from Gonzales. The guy who was postmaster at Gonzales also ran a general store, and he made his own labels for medicine, whiskey or whatever. He sold at the general store there. Well, he had some foil type labels that he just converted into postage stamps, and it was a pretty interesting thing. But they're pretty unique. And this one sold for $54,000. There's only 2 of them known with that foil label on it, or foil provisional. Okay. This is a cut and paste stamp from Hallettsville, and it's the only known example of it. And it's just like the other one. The guy took a regular piece of paper and stamped it with a hand stamp, and then cut them out, and you had to glue them on the envelope. This one sold for $19,800 in '91. I expect it would go for a little more than that now. Helena, Texas. The only known examples of this stamp are off cover. So this is the only one with a clear cancellation on it here, you can see. So it was actually used in postage, but for some reason somebody took it off the cover. It's probably some damn stamp collector, That sold for $60,000 in an auction. Independence, Texas. There's only 5 of these known. This one pulled down $30,000. Plum Creek. This was a real small provisional, and you'll see they had like handwritten 10 on there or something, and the guy just cut out a bunch of them and would stick them on the envelopes for people. But this one, even with just that small, inobscure provisional on there, it realized $9,000 in an auction. Fort Lavaca, they renamed it just Lavaca instead of Fort Lavaca, and those were printed as well. So this one got $1,300 the last time it came up in 1956. They estimated it about $30,000 now. And Victoria, this is an interesting cover. There's only 2 recorded with the 10-cent Victoria mark on it, and this one realized $100,000 in the 2014 Siegel auction. This actually has the postmaster's name on it, J.A. Moody. So it was an interesting cover, and it's actually coming up for sale again. I think I don't know if it's this one or a different one, It's coming up for sale in September in the Siegel auction. I've got some pictures of that I can show you if you're really interested. I don't think their estimate is anywhere near that $100,000. So we'll take a look at it later.
Rick, the guy that
Yeah.
this addressed to, San Roman, was a dealer in cotton in Mexico,
Oh, yeah?
trying to get cotton over to England and other places. So he was a
Yeah.
big cotton merchant.
You know, Brownsville was the only way that it could go to get the cotton out of the South, pretty much. All of the harbors were blockaded by the North. So Brownsville was the only way they could sneak the cotton out, and that was a very popular way to go down through there. So I'm sure it was probably to this guy then who they were saying, hey, we've got 100,000 pounds of cotton. We need to move somewhere. So it was an interesting time back then. So thanks for that bit of information. I didn't know that. And you had that. Who had that postcard? Was that Ken that had that postcard with Lincoln on it? Yeah, that oversized postcard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's Lincoln here, but he's hanging from a tree. Confederates had a different viewpoint of it, I guess. And I have seen actually several of these different covers with this same graphic on it. So somebody was printing those and putting them out. Apparently, they were pretty popular in the South, and from what I understand, some of the printers up north were actually making these covers and shipping them south to get money. So, hey, money is the root of all evil, right? So anyway, this one realized $21,000 in the Siegel auction. That's pretty much it for the provisionals. I've got a little bit extra stuff here I want to show you. The United States was blockading most of the Confederate ports. Like you'll see this battle here at Hampton Roads, the Monitor and the Merrimack, Battle of Mobile Bay. This is the Confederate submarine Hundley. And this is a very interesting story if you want to read, spend some time reading about the Hundley. It's quite an effort by the Confederates to try to come up with a whole new way of running these blockades and sinking the ships that were blocking the harbors. So this book right here called Raising the Hundley, you can find it on Amazon for as little as $1.23. So I would very highly recommend you read the book if you're interested in that kind of stuff. It's quite a remarkable story. And Clive Cussler, who's a famous author, was very involved in the effort to raise that submarine up. So it's an interesting story. There is a museum right now in Charleston about that. This shows more of what the Union was doing. They were blockading the railroads as well as the ship harbors, and they were destroying the engines and destroying the railroads as they could to try to keep anything from moving out of the Confederate States or into the Confederate States. So that produced a whole new problem as a lack of paper in the southern states in the Confederacy. People couldn't get paper. You would think that, paper was plentiful, but not so. So what happened was they came up with ways around that. They would take an old cover, an old envelope, turn it around and re-glue it so that the original postage was on the inside. Then they'd put new postage on the outside and use the envelope again. So this is called a turn cover. But a lot of these turn covers are done so well, it's very hard to even see that they were done that way. But I've seen a couple of them. I think I even have one around here somewhere. That was a turn cover. And it's interesting to see how they did those things. Adversity covers were just used when they couldn't find an envelope. They would just take a regular piece of paper and turn it and put the address on the outside and send it like that, just like they did back in the stampless days, where they didn't have envelopes. They would just send it like that. And this one was actually created by using wallpaper from a stamp of a Southern home. The wallpaper was pretty popular back in that time, in the antebellum time, and all the fancy houses had wallpaper on them. So they said, well, let's just strip the wallpaper off and use that as an envelope. So that's what they did. If you went back to some of those houses that weren't burned down, some of the times you would see big pieces of wallpaper missing off the walls from them. And they're pretty common in the marketplace. You can see them every now and then come up for auction. And a lot of you guys might know this guy, Charles Deaton. He wrote this book called Great Texas Stamps Collection. And he spent most of his life researching these Texas Confederate Provisionals. And he's quite an interesting guy. And his book actually inspired me to come up with this whole presentation here. So if you get a chance to talk to Charlie, he's usually at our expos, and if you buy something from him, he'll probably even give you the book. So you might talk to him. He's a good guy. And also wanted to thank Siegel Auction Galleries. I don't know if you guys know what they're doing, but they have digitized every one of their auction catalogs. So you can go onto their website and download PDFs of any auction catalog they have had in the past. It's an amazing resource for anybody doing research on what stamps are sold for and such. And that's it as far as I got. I can show you these lots that are going to come up in this auction. You guys see that?
No,
Nope.
I'm gonna have to get out of sharing. and
still
come back.
seeing the end of the slideshow.
Okay. How about now?
Okay,
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep,
There's a few Texas lots in the Siegel sale that's coming up on September 9th. This one actually has to do with John Reagan. I think it's one of the only known documents with his signature on it. It's fairly interesting. They expect it'll bring $1,000 to $1,500.
well, thank you, Rick. Very interesting. Are there any questions for Rick?
Yes. Rick, other
Yeah.
states besides Texas surely must have had a shortage of getting the Confederate stamps, and they must have issued provisional letters and postage. Are they as expensive or as rare as the Texas ones?
Some of them are, and you're right. Every state had provisionals because, like I said, those guys in Richmond that were printing Confederate stamps were pretty remiss in getting them out, and it was hard to get the stamps transported to the different cities and everything. So they were in high demand, and you'll find that every state had those covers, and some of them are extremely expensive. But Texas seems to be unique in the fact that theirs have constantly gone for higher prices. I think there's one in Virginia, in Alexandria, Virginia, that's probably as high, but I'm not sure about that. I've been just looking at Texas stuff, and
Yeah.
and here's a Beaumont one that's coming up for sale, and I'm not sure what the estimate is on that one. $27,500. Some of you guys might know this name here, Kilbourne he is a collector out of
Benbrook.
Benbrook, yeah.
Yep.
And he, this was in his collection at one time. So, and then Bill Gross came along and ended up buying everything from everybody. So anyway, here's the Victoria stamp. This is just a stamp, not a cover, and it's estimated at $20,000. But their stuff actually usually goes a lot higher than what their estimates are. But that's a Siegel auction for you. So somebody will get on there and want something in particular, will end up spending a whole lot of money for it. This is pretty interesting. You got a bunch of bisects on it. So.
Okay,
Anyway,
thank you very much.
that was it for
Excellent.
me.
Thank you, Rick.
Sure thing.
Is there any other business or things we need to transact during the meeting? Next month, Rob Hathaway has agreed to do a program. I do not have a title yet. We will do a virtual meeting next Tuesday, September 22nd. That'll be the fourth Tuesday. Gary McNamee will host that. I believe you're able to do that, Gary.
Yes.
If not, probably Rick can back you up.
Actually, I'd rather host it myself, Dave, because I've got the capability of recording these and putting them on YouTube. I don't know if I could show Gary how to do that, or whether we could get that off of his
Gary,
computer.
you wanna let him do it?
Sure, you can do it.
Okay, well, that's settled, and the time will be 7 p.m. to start again. You're all welcome, and Rick, I'd suggest we stop the recording, and if any of you